we are continuing in this new video to talk about measure and dimension tools. So without further ado, let's check out the point information button and see what it does. So I click on it and I'll pick a random point in my point cloud, for example here. And if we look here in the command line, I'll get several details about the point I selected. So here I have its coordinates. As you can see, we have the XYZ values. We also have the RGB color values, and we can also read its intensity here. And if I can read its intensity, that means the point cloud contains intensity information. So if I select the point cloud and switch the color mapping to intensity, we can see that this data is available, right? And if I go back to the command line, we also see it says the point has no classification, because when I go there, classification is totally grayed out. So that's basically what this button does. It gives you information in the command line about the point you selected. Alright, so let's switch back to our initial settings with the scan colors, and now let's take a look at the other tool in the measure section, measure distance. Here you can see I also have a drop-down menu with two options. First we have measure distance, and the other one is called measure angle. So let's click on the first one to see how it works. Let's say, for example, that I would like to measure the distance between this wall here and the opposite over here. In the command line, you can see that I can measure the horizontal distance, the vertical distance, or the 3D distance between the two selected points. So let's say I want to measure the horizontal distance between this first point right here and the second point over here. And there we can see the horizontal distance in the command line. If I want the vertical distance, it's the same process. Select vertical here, then pick a first point at the top and a second point at the bottom. And there, the vertical distance is now displayed in the command line. Okay, let's quickly try the same process for the 3D option as well, just to cover all the cases. So I select 3D and I want to measure from this point here to that point over there, for example. And there, the 3D distance is displayed in the command line, which is basically the diagonal between the 2 points. Alright, let's continue now with the next option, measuring an angle. Measuring an angle is simple. Just click a point on each side of these walls. And there in the command line, I get the angle between these two walls. Let's do it again on an interior angle like this one. I click on measure angle, then I click here on the right, then I click on the left, and here I get 90.9 degrees in the command line. So it's very easy to get different types of measurements. Alright, so let's have a look now at distance dimension. When I click on the drop-down menu, I see two options, distance dimension and angular dimension. Let's start a quick demo using the distance dimension tool to show you how useful it is. Let's pick a random point right here, and another one, let's say somewhere here. And now if I hide the point cloud slice, you can see the result is fully triangulated. So here is my 3D distance between the 2 points. My vertical distance on the z-axis, here it's the horizontal distance on y-axis, and the horizontal distance on the x-axis. So if I go back to my point cloud slice here, let's say I'm only interested in the distance between this outer wall and that outer wall, and well, I can just pick any random point on those two surfaces without worrying about their exact location. Because thanks to dimension triangulation, I can focus only on what I care about. In this case, the y dimension. And here I can get the exact perpendicular distance between the two walls. So it's a very useful and smart way to triangulate and isolate each distance along the axis. Alright, let's go back here to cover the last feature of this section, which is angular dimension. This one is very simple. just to pick a point here and another one here. Now I'll hide my point cloud slice to get a better view of the result. And here is my angle between the two walls. And here, this vertical line represents the z-axis distance between the first point I picked and the second point on the other wall. Alright, that's it for these few useful tools. Some of them are directly accessible from the command line, and the others let vectors in the drawing so you can measure or annotate your point clouds. Alright, now let's move on to the last section of the tutorial series, the tools section.